She said she was going to yoga. Not the kind of statement that should raise alarms. Nothing about yoga, in theory, demands suspicion. But that day, and maybe this will sound strange, she said it too carefully. Like the words had been practiced in the mirror beforehand. Like she was trying not to blink the wrong way. She didn't normally wear mascara to yoga. Or lipstick. Or the earrings I got her for our 10th anniversary, the ones she claimed were too heavy for day wear. But there they were, hanging from her ears like two little declarations of betrayal. I didn't say anything. I let her go. I even smiled, wished her a good class. Then I watched from the kitchen window as she backed her car out of the driveway, pretending not to see me. I waited 5 minutes. Grabbed my keys. I didn't know exactly what I was doing, wasn't even sure I wanted to find anything, but my body moved before my thoughts caught up. I tailed her from a block away. No music, no AC, just my own heartbeat in my throat and the sound of tires whispering over asphalt. She didn't go to the yoga studio. She didn't even take the right turn. She drove 15 minutes in the opposite direction and pulled into a small, nondescript motel off Route 18, the kind that tries not to be noticed. She didn't hesitate, didn't look around. She just parked and walked in. No gym bag, no mat, just her and a purpose. I sat in my car for 10 minutes, maybe more. My hands weren't shaking. That would have made sense. What I felt was colder, quieter, like my whole body had slowed down to preserve power. Like something ancient was waking up inside me, and it didn't want to scream. It wanted to listen. When she came out an hour later, she wasn't alone. He was tall, dark-haired, confident in that way only men with no conscience are. He didn't kiss her. He didn't need to. They moved together like they'd done this before many times. Too many times. He put a hand on the small of her back as they walked to their cars. She laughed at something he said, the kind of laugh she hadn't used with me in years. I drove home and scrubbed the kitchen counters. I don't know why. They weren't dirty. I just needed something to do with my hands. I needed to erase the image of her, my wife, standing with another man like I didn't exist. Like our home, our child, our 15 years were just a costume she took off whenever it suited her. That night, she came back smelling like soap. Motel soap, I would later realize. She made a cup of tea, kissed my cheek, asked about my day. I told her it was fine. I asked about yoga. She said it was intense. That was the word she used. Intense. I almost laughed. Instead, I said I was glad she went. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I wanted to watch the mask slip again. I wanted to see how deep the lie ran. Because something inside me, something I hadn't felt in years, wanted her to keep going. So I could tear through every lie she clung to. So I could make her gasp on the truth she tried to bury. 15 years of silence brought me here. And I wasn't sure if victory would feel like freedom or regret. But I knew one thing. Real truth cuts deeper when mercy walks beside it. Next time she left the house, I followed her again. But what I found next wasn't what I expected. It was worse that I didn't follow her to the motel this time. She didn't go there. She told me she was meeting her friend Megan for dinner. I nodded, asked her to say hi for me, and she left with that same too-rehearsed smile. I waited until she pulled out of the neighborhood, then took the back route to the place I guessed she'd really be. It wasn't a restaurant. It wasn't anywhere near Megan's usual spots. It was a house. Small, white, tucked away on a side street I never paid attention to. She parked in the driveway like she belonged there. Walked up to the front door and didn't knock. Just used a key. That was new. She had a key. I parked around the corner, behind a hedge. I sat there for an hour, staring at that door like it was a mouth that had swallowed her whole. Lights flicked on inside. A silhouette passed by the window. Then another. They moved close, touched, separated, touched again. There was nothing dramatic, nothing sordid, but it was unmistakable. They were at home with each other. Like this was her real life. I didn't go up to the door. I didn't kick it down or yell or try to make a scene. That wasn't the kind of war I wanted. Not yet. Instead, I waited until the next day. She came back that night smelling of wine and wood smoke. Said Megan had a fire pit going in the backyard. Told me they talked about old times. I asked her what they ate. She blinked. Paused. Pasta, she said. Megan made that lemon chicken pasta I love. I nodded slowly. Took out my phone. Hey, I said, is this Megan's number? She froze. Just a fraction of a second, but I saw it. That stutter in her breath, that tiny shift in her weight like her body was preparing for impact. I dialed. It rang, and rang. And then, to her absolute misfortune, Megan picked up. Hey, I said, voice casual. Just wanted to thank you for making dinner last night. Jess said it was amazing. Pause. Last night. Megan's voice came through sharp, confused. I haven't seen Jess in weeks. Silence. I looked at her. She was staring at me with that awful, slow-spreading realization that the mask had cracked. She didn't try to salvage it. Didn't cry. Didn't apologize. She smiled. She smiled. Like she'd just been caught cheating in a card game, not in our life. You really went through all this? She asked. You followed me? Called my friends. That was her reaction. Not fear. Not shame. Mockery. You didn't have to do all that, she said and laughed. Actually laughed. I would have told you eventually. I just didn't want the drama. That was the moment something in me went cold. Not angry. Not even betrayed. Just still. Because the version of her I carried in my head, the woman I built a life with, she wouldn't have laughed. But this woman? This woman was a stranger. She looked at me like I was the fool. Like I'd made this complicated. Like she was doing me a favor by living her double life quietly. I'm not in love with you, she added flatly. I haven't been for a long time. I asked, then why stay? She shrugged. Habit. Convenience. Stability. And you didn't ask. Didn't ask. Like it was my fault I believed her. I walked out of the room, locked myself in the guest bathroom and sat on the edge of the tub trying to remember how to breathe. Everything she said played over and over in my head. The laugh. The shrug. The casual admission. She had built a second life right next to mine. And I hadn't just missed it. I'd enabled it. But the worst part, the part one still can't explain, is that I wasn't broken. I wasn't even surprised. I was ready. Because now I had her truth. And I wasn't going to waste it. The next morning, she acted like nothing happened. She made coffee, hummed while she buttered toast. The sun poured through the kitchen window, and for a second it looked like a normal day, like any other quiet Saturday morning in our house. Except it wasn't. It was a crime scene with no sirens. Just silence and fresh orange juice. She sat across from me and asked if I wanted to do anything fun that day. Maybe go to the farmer's market. Maybe a movie later. I stared at her, wondering if she'd lost her mind, or if she had simply been hiding this version of herself for years. Or maybe, and this was worse, she'd never been hiding at all. Maybe I just refused to see. I said nothing, just got up, walked out the door, and drove. No destination. No plan. I just drove. About 2 hours in, I ended up at my brother's house. Tom had always been the sharp one. No tolerance for nonsense. The kind of guy who could smell dishonesty 3 rooms away. I hadn't told him a thing about what I'd uncovered. He opened the door, saw my face, and didn't even ask. Inside, he said, now. I unloaded everything. Every detail. The motel. The house. The lie about dinner. Her laugh. Her smile. The key. And the worst part, how little she cared that I knew. Tom didn't interrupt. Just poured us both a drink, even though it wasn't even noon. When I finished, he let out a low whistle and shook his head. Okay, he said. So what's the play? And that's when it hit me. I didn't have one. Because this wasn't a moment. It wasn't a fight. It wasn't a crack to fix. It was a total collapse. The foundation was gone. And I'd been standing on rubble for years, pretending it was rock. I went home that night, calmer than I should have been. She was on the couch, scrolling her phone, a blanket draped over her legs like she hadn't just detonated our lives. She looked up and smiled. Hey, you okay? She had the gall to ask me that, as if my reaction to her betrayal was an inconvenience. I didn't answer, just walked to the bedroom, opened the closet, and started pulling my things down. My suits, my work shoes, the drawer with my watch collection. She followed me in, arms crossed, eyebrows raised. Really? She said. You're going to be that dramatic? I turned to her slowly. You lied to me for years. You built an entire life behind my back. You made me feel crazy for trusting you. Her face shifted just a flicker, but it was there. You're overreacting, she said. It's not like I don't love you in some way. Some way? I asked. She shrugged. I mean, I care about you, but we're not in love. You stopped being interesting a long time ago. You were safe, comfortable, but exciting? No. The words sliced through me not like knives, like razors, precise, calculated. Tiny cuts with no blood, just pain. You could have left, I said. At any time, you could have said something. She laughed. You don't get it. You were useful. You made life easy. Why would I leave comfort? Useful. I was a tool to her. A placeholder while she lived out whatever fantasy she'd written for herself. That was the moment something in me, not anger, not sadness, but clarity, finally surfaced. This wasn't about betrayal anymore. It was about identity. Mine. I didn't recognize her anymore, but I had to recognize myself again. And that meant making a move she didn't see coming. So I looked her dead in the eyes. You want comfort? I said. Keep it, but don't expect to find peace inside it. She rolled her eyes. Oh, please. You're not going anywhere. You're too scared to be alone. She turned and left the room like she'd won. And maybe she thought she had. But she hadn't seen what I did next. She hadn't seen the letter I wrote, or the name on the envelope. She hadn't seen what I slipped into the lockbox under the bed. She hadn't seen the real start of my revenge. And trust me, the end will cut deeper than any truth she thought she'd buried. She didn't notice the lockbox was missing. That surprised me more than it should have. She used to ask about everything. If I moved a picture frame, if I threw out a receipt, she'd have a comment. Now, I could have dragged a piano out the front door and she'd be too busy texting whoever she thought was more important. The lockbox was small, black, unremarkable. Inside, I placed the letter, handwritten, not typed, and a small stack of photographs I'd printed that morning. A photo of the motel. A photo of the house. A blurry one of her and him leaning just a bit too close. Not proof for a court. Not hard evidence. But damning enough. Personal enough. The envelope was addressed to her mother. That wasn't for spite. That was for memory. Her mother adored me, called me the only man who'd ever tamed her daughter's wildness. I wasn't sure that was a compliment anymore. Still, I knew exactly what that woman's voice would sound like when she read the letter, how it would ring in her daughter's ears. Some things are sharper than knives. Disappointment, for example. The next part came fast. I contacted a lawyer. Quietly. No grand gestures. No, you'll hear from my attorney dramatics. Just a calm consultation and a series of careful questions. I wanted to know exactly how to leave without setting fire to myself on the way out. I wasn't going to beg for dignity, I'd build it myself. But here's where everything veered off course. I came home that night to find her in the dining room. She was wearing that same look, the one she put on when she wanted to get her way. Legs crossed, glass of wine untouched, head tilted just slightly. I've been thinking, she said, not looking up. Maybe we should try counseling. Counseling. I actually laughed. She flinched just a little because she hadn't expected that. She thought I'd grab onto the offer like a man drowning. She thought I was still that predictable. You want to go to therapy? I asked. Now? She nodded. We've been together so long. I mean, people go through things. Nobody's perfect. We have a history. History, I repeated. Is that what you call all this? She raised her eyes then. Calm. Collected. Manipulative. I'm not saying I didn't mess up, but maybe it doesn't have to end in disaster. The gall. The audacity. She wasn't sorry for what she did. She was sorry I didn't collapse under it. She wasn't looking for redemption. She was looking for control. I leaned forward, placed my hands on the table, and locked eyes with her. You already ended this, I said, voice low. You just didn't have the courage to leave. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. You're being emotional. Wrong move. That word, emotional, dropped into my chest like ice water. It was her go-to insult whenever she wanted to shut me down, to make me feel irrational. But I wasn't irrational. I was awake. What do you think happens now? She asked, quietly. That was her soft voice. The one she used when she knew the storm was bigger than her umbrella. I smiled. Now I let you figure it out. I stood, walked to the living room, and turned on the TV like nothing had happened. She stayed there, still as stone, gripping her wine glass like it was the only solid thing in the room. She didn't know I'd already transferred half our savings to a separate account under my name. Legally, cleanly. She didn't know I'd spoken to our son's school counselor about what might be coming. She didn't know I'd documented every lie she'd told since the day I found out. Dates, times, places, witnesses, and most of all, she didn't know that tomorrow morning, the lockbox would be delivered. Not just to her mother, but to him. He was married too. I found that out 2 days ago, and the game had just begun. The lockbox was delivered at 9:46 a.m. By 10:15, all hell broke loose. I didn't even have to wait long. The man, her other life, her shadow affair, was married with a daughter and a dog and a picture-perfect backyard with a tire swing. I'd found his social media, cross-referenced the license plate I'd snapped outside the White House, and within an hour I had his home address, his wife's name, and what school his kid went to. It was all out there, served on a silver digital platter by the internet. People like him never expect someone's husband to do the work. But I did. Every step. His wife's name was Rachel. I addressed her envelope carefully, respectfully, and I included a copy of my letter. Not for vengeance, not yet, but for precision. She deserved to know what was sitting across her breakfast table each morning. And when she opened it, when she saw her husband's face next to my wife's at that cheap motel and that tucked-away house, I imagine she didn't scream. I imagine she stared the way I had, trying to measure the scale of the betrayal. At 10:19 a.m. she called him. I know because he called my wife right after, and I was sitting on the stairs when her phone lit up. She answered too quickly. Hey, wait, what? Slow down. What do you mean, you? Then she went silent. Her face shifted in waves, confusion, realization, panic, rage. You're serious? She hissed. Who sent it? Who gave it to you? I didn't move. I didn't make a sound. I wanted her to say my name. I wanted her to taste it. But she didn't. Instead, she stood up and walked toward the back door like she could just leave it all behind. Like she was heading somewhere she could hide. But the thing about truth is that it's portable. You can't outrun it. You carry it whether you want to or not. When she turned and saw me sitting on the stairs, she froze. Her lips were parted, but no words came out. I asked one question. Did you think I wouldn't find him? She didn't answer. Just dropped her phone onto the kitchen counter like it was burning her hand. She paced, hands through her hair, muttering to herself. Then she snapped. I cannot believe you would do this, she screamed. You destroyed his life. You ruined his family. Her voice cracked. Real tears, maybe, but not for me, not even for herself. For him. I stood, slow and even, and walked toward her. You burned our home to keep your fantasy warm, I said quietly. Don't act surprised that someone else smelled the smoke. She looked like she wanted to hit me. Her hands clenched, then unclenched. She was breathing hard, her whole body shaking with fury. But she still didn't apologize. You think you're noble now? She spat. You think exposing everyone makes you the hero in this? You don't even see what you've done. No, I said. I see exactly what I've done. For the first time in 15 years. I see everything. There was a long pause. She looked away, then back at me. Do you still love me? She asked, almost whispering. And that was the cruelest question of all. Because the answer was so much more complicated than yes or no. The man who had loved her died slowly, over years. Not in one betrayal. Not even in the lie. But in the disrespect. In the silence that followed. In her mockery. Her indifference. Her easy smile when the mask fell off. So I told her the truth. I loved you. The woman I thought you were. That woman's gone. She stepped back like she'd been slapped. For once, she didn't have a comeback. She walked upstairs without another word. And I let her go. That night I didn't sleep. I lay in the guest room, listening for footsteps, phone calls, anything. But the house was quiet. She didn't come to find me. She didn't try to explain. The next morning, she was gone. No note, no bags missing. Just her car, gone from the driveway. I didn't follow her. I didn't need to. I'd already made my move. Now it was her turn to flinch. She stayed gone for 3 days. Not a word. No texts. No, I need space. No dramatic voicemail. Just vanished. The silence in the house was so loud it felt like it was pressing on my ribs. Her perfume still lingered in the hall, subtle but persistent, like even the walls couldn't believe she was really gone. The first night, I made dinner for myself. I sat at the table across from her empty chair, fork in hand, and for a split second, I imagined her walking in and saying something trivial like she used to. "We're out of oat milk." The neighbor's dog barked all night again. Something stupid. Something normal. But there was no door creak. No heels. No lies wrapped in casual conversation. Just me. And the dull echo of a marriage dying without ceremony. I spent the next 2 days cleaning the house like a man preparing for inspection. I boxed up old books. Took down photos. The wedding picture in the hallway. The one where she looked at me like I was the only man in the world. I stared at that for 20 minutes before finally taking it off the hook. The wall behind it was lighter, untouched by time, like a ghost of the life we tried to paint. Then the text came. "I want to talk." Nothing else. No apology. No location. Just a summons. I let her wait 12 hours before I responded. "Come home." "But I'm not the same person you left." She showed up at 7:03 p.m., same makeup. Same earrings. But something in her was off. Her posture had changed. Her movements were slower, heavier. Her eyes had that look. Like someone who'd seen a version of themselves in a mirror and didn't recognize the reflection. She didn't sit down. Didn't ask how I was. Why him? I asked before she could open her mouth. Of all people. Why him? She stared at me. Because he didn't need me to be anything. The words knocked the breath out of me. "I spent years pretending," she said, arms folded tight against herself. "With you, it was always about being the wife you wanted. The one who keeps the house running. Smiles in front of your friends. Supports your ambitions. But with him, I didn't have to be anything. I could be messy. I could be selfish. I could be real." I almost laughed. "You're blaming me for your affair?" "I'm explaining it," she said quickly. "You can't possibly understand what it's like to feel invisible in your own marriage." I stepped closer. "Invisible? You lied for years. You created another version of your life while I sat in this house thinking we were a team. You stopped seeing me," she exploded. "You saw what you wanted to see, not me." That's when I realized something that hit harder than the betrayal itself. She didn't feel guilty. Not even a little. She'd rewritten the story in her mind so thoroughly, so convincingly, that she was the one who'd been wronged. "You told him you loved him?" I asked, flatly. She didn't answer. And that was the answer. I walked to the cabinet, opened the drawer, and pulled out the thick envelope my lawyer had prepped. Her eyes locked on it instantly. She took one step back. "What is that?" "Freedom," I said. She didn't touch it. Didn't move. "You're really doing this?" she whispered. "Just like that. You thought you could humiliate me, cheat, lie, mock me, and then toss out therapy like a Band-Aid? You're not just a liar. You're a master manipulator. But I've seen the whole picture now. Every corner of it." Her face started to tremble, but not with sadness. With rage. "You're going to regret this," she said, cold and sharp. "No," I replied. "I already regret staying this long." I placed the envelope on the kitchen table, right where she used to leave grocery lists and anniversary cards. And then I walked away, up the stairs, into the guest room, and I shut the door behind me. She didn't follow. She never does when the game stops playing by her rules. She didn't sign the papers. Not right away. For someone who claimed she didn't love me anymore, she sure hesitated when it came time to let go. I left the envelope on the table day after day, untouched except for the occasional movement, once slightly askew, once tucked beneath a magazine, once just gone, then back. She was circling it like it might bite. I watched her from the hallway once, late at night. She stood in front of it, glass of water in her hand, just staring at the seal. No motion, no sound. Like she was waiting for it to open itself and whisper a different future. She didn't notice me watching. She didn't notice much anymore. And then on the 5th morning, I came downstairs to find her sitting at the table in a robe, hair undone, face bare. The envelope was in front of her, finally opened. She looked up at me and said the most unexpected thing yet, "I want everything." It was flat. No inflection. No threat in her voice, just a dead-eyed decree. I almost laughed. "You want what exactly?" "Half. The house. The car. The savings. I've been here 15 years too. I earned it." "You earned this." I gestured around. "The fallout? The silence? The manipulation?" She tilted her head. "You really think this divorce is just about you?" "I lost things too. You threw them away." She pushed her chair back and stood slowly like we were entering a new arena. "You think you're the hero in all this. But you're not. You just had the better timing. You waited for the moment to make me look like the villain. You were the villain." She smiled. "No. I'm just better at playing the long game." It hit me then. She wasn't clinging to the marriage. She wasn't hoping for forgiveness. She was positioning herself. Angling. Planning her exit not like a woman heartbroken, but like a tactician rearranging pieces on a board. I had underestimated her again. But she'd underestimated me too. "You're not getting the house," I said. "Or the savings. I have documents, witness statements, timestamps, evidence. You don't walk out of a marriage this dirty and come away clean." She raised an eyebrow. "You drag this into court? Air it all out? For what pride?" "No," I said. "For truth. The kind you choke on, not the kind you sculpt." She paused, measuring me, probably realizing for the first time that I wasn't bluffing. "You've changed," she said quietly. "No," I replied. "You just finally saw me clearly. You mistook silence for weakness." There was something else in her expression now, not fear, not anger. Something smaller. Something she hadn't allowed herself to feel for a long time, uncertainty. I picked up the folder from the table, flipped through the pages slowly, deliberately. "I'll give you a choice," I said. "We do this clean. You walk away with dignity. No courts. No scorched earth. Or we let it all burn and I bring every lie you told into daylight." She didn't answer. But she didn't walk away either. And that was the beginning of her unraveling. Because now she had to choose, not between me and him. Not between guilt and denial, but between reality and the role she'd been performing in for years. And for once, she didn't know her lines. She stayed in the house. That was the strangest part. After all the venom, the lies, the unveiled contempt, she didn't pack a single bag. She kept floating through the house like nothing had changed. Wore her same silk robes. Drank from her favorite mug. Watered the plants she never used to touch. But there was a difference now, a fracture behind the eyes. She avoided the kitchen in the morning like the place held ghosts. She no longer opened the mail. No longer commented on the news. She would sit in the sunroom sometimes, hands clasped like she was waiting for some external force to tell her what to do next. I didn't interrupt her. I wanted her to sit in that silence. I wanted her to feel the shape of everything she'd dismantled. And then one morning I got the email. It wasn't from her. It was from Rachel, the other man's wife. It was short, precise, and devastating. "I filed this morning. He's staying in a hotel now. I've spoken to your lawyer. If you ever want to compare timelines, I'm open to it. The stories don't match." My stomach flipped. I reread the message twice. Then again. The stories don't match. I went cold. That night, I sat on the couch while she scrolled her phone and I asked, "Did you tell him I hit you?" She blinked. Looked up slowly. "What? Did you tell him I was abusive?" Her face did this thing, a flicker, not of guilt, but of calculation. Like a machine weighing how much it could deny before it cracked. "He asked," she said evenly. I didn't say yes. I just didn't say no. There it was. Confirmation. She had painted me as a villain in the background of her affair, not to me, but to him. To justify it. To give her fantasy a clean edge. She made me a monster so she could feel like a victim. I stood up, heart hammering. "You told another man, a married man, that I hurt you. You let him believe I abused you. She didn't move. It's not like you were ever emotionally available. That sentence. I trusted you with my heart, my name, my life. And you weaponized all of it, I said, low and sharp. Not just against me. Against the truth. What truth? She snapped. That you were distant? That you cared more about being right than being real? You think you're so innocent, but you stopped loving me years ago. You just didn't notice. You convinced a man to leave his wife by playing the victim. You lied about your own husband to feel justified in wrecking 2 homes. That's not distance. That's destruction. She looked like she wanted to throw something. Her fingers twitched around the throw pillow beside her. You want to crucify me? Go ahead, she said. But I'm not the only one who let this rot. I leaned in, my voice almost a whisper. No, but I'm the only one who didn't lie while it rotted. She stood then, a sudden motion, face twisted with something between fury and shame. You want the truth, she said. I never thought you'd find out. I never thought you could. Because you were always so slow to act, so damn considerate. You don't scare me. You never did. I nodded. Then it's time you saw what happens when a quiet man stops being considerate. I walked away. Again. But this time I didn't go upstairs. I went into my office, opened a drawer, and pulled out the file I hadn't shown anyone yet, not even the lawyer. Inside was a printed transcript, screenshots, voice recordings, bank statements. It was the entire architecture of her affair. I dropped it onto the table the next morning, right in front of her coffee cup. She didn't say a word. She just stared at it like it was a mirror she didn't want to look into. Because in that folder, she would see every lie she told laid bare. And this time, I wouldn't be the one unraveling. She would. She didn't open the folder right away. She left it there for hours, untouched, like it radiated heat. I watched her pretend it wasn't sitting right in front of her, between sips of coffee and little glances toward the window. But I could see it. The way her jaw clenched, the way her fingers hovered near the edge of the paper like they might catch fire if they touched it. At 2:17 p.m., she finally flipped it open. And then the room changed. I was in the hallway when I heard the sound. A soft gasp, like someone had been sucker punched. The kind of sound you make when you realize something isn't just real. It's recorded, documented, preserved. She called my name once. Not loud, not angry, just hollow. I walked in. She was sitting on the floor now, folders scattered around her like broken glass. Her hands trembled. Her eyes were locked on the photo of her and the other man at the gas station 2 counties over, holding hands, laughing. The timestamp was brutal. So was the receipt taped beside it. And the audio file I'd burned onto a tiny USB labeled simply, "You said this." "You recorded me?" she asked, voice cracking. "No, he did," I said. "Your lover wasn't as private as you thought. He kept voicemails, text backups. You were his thrill, not his escape." Her lips parted, but no words came. I could see it now, her whole internal system rebooting, trying to calculate just how exposed she really was. "That's not just evidence for court," I continued. "That's leverage. That's your script laid bare." She stood slowly. "You want to ruin me." I looked at her, really looked, and I saw for the first time someone who could be ruined. "I want you to face what you built," I said. "Brick by lie. You spent 15 years curating this version of yourself. Polished, perfect, desirable. And when it cracked, you didn't fix it, you ran from it." "I didn't think you had this in you," she said quietly. "Neither did I admitted. But silence forged it." She walked over to the table, her hands still shaking. "So what now? You go public? You send this to my job? My family?" I didn't answer right away. Instead, I walked to the window, looking out over the yard she never helped mow, the garden she only posed beside for pictures. So much of our life had been set dressing, curated like an exhibit. Perfect for show, hollow at the core. "No," I said finally. "That would make me like you." A long silence followed. Then she asked something that stopped me cold. "Do you hate me?" I turned around slowly. That question, not "do you still love me," not "can we fix this," but "do you hate me," it carried weight. "I don't know," I said, "but I don't trust myself to feel anything for you anymore. Not after all this." She nodded once. Just once. And then she did something that genuinely surprised me. She cried. Not loud, not performative, just tears. Silent, real. Maybe not for me. Maybe not even for the marriage. Maybe just for the unraveling of her carefully crafted lie. Why did you wait so long to fight back? She whispered. I walked closer, not touching her, not comforting. Just standing near enough for her to feel the weight of my presence. Because I thought being kind was enough, I said. But sometimes kindness becomes complicity. And I refuse to be complicit in your version of the truth. She wiped her face with the back of her hand, smudging whatever was left of her mask. I'll sign, she said. I'll sign everything. I nodded. But I didn't thank her. Because you don't thank someone for doing the bare minimum after they've lit the foundation on fire. This wasn't closure. This was the prelude to finality. And the real reckoning hadn't even started. The papers were signed on a Monday. Not in a dramatic scene, not in a fight, not even with eye contact. Just 2 signatures on cream-colored legal paper, notarized by a stranger who probably sees a dozen breakups a week. It was quiet, surgical, the legal execution of a life built on illusions. She left the office first. Didn't look back. Didn't wait. She took her copy, her handbag, her silence, and walked out like it was a meeting that ran long. I watched her through the glass as she stepped into the sunlight, blinked once, and disappeared into the blur of passing strangers. I wondered, for just a second, if she felt lighter, or if the weight she carried was something she'd never be able to set down again. I stayed behind. The notary gave me a tired look. I could tell she didn't want to ask, didn't want to hear it, but she did ask, softly. That the end of it? I looked down at the signature, her name in tight, practiced loops. It looked so normal. You'd never know what kind of fire that ink came from. No, I said. It's the beginning. And it was. The weeks that followed were a strange mix of stillness and sudden clarity. I moved out of the house. I didn't sell it. I left it to her. She wanted it so she could keep it 4 walls that heard everything and spoke nothing. I didn't want to sleep in a place where the air still held her lies. I took the lockbox. It sits in a drawer now unopened. A reminder. Not of her, but of the version of me who believed silence was the same as peace. One afternoon, Rachel, the other man's wife, and I met for coffee. It wasn't planned to be emotional. It wasn't revenge or trauma bonding. It was just 2 people sitting in a shared crater, passing notes from their mutual destruction. She brought the timeline. It lined up with mine like puzzle pieces, identical dates, identical phrases, identical patterns. He told her I was controlling. He told me she was just a friend. She showed me a message he sent the day before our wedding anniversary. She's so predictable. I could sleepwalk through that marriage. That message had been sent from the same White House. Same couch. Probably the same blanket my ex-wife had wrapped herself in while she told me she was going to a wellness seminar. I didn't cry. I didn't even flinch. I just sipped my coffee and said they deserve each other. Rachel smiled a strange, tired smile. They won't last. You know that, right? I know, I said. But I don't care anymore. And I didn't. Because hey race, the thing nobody tells you about betrayal, it doesn't end when the other person leaves. It ends when you stop letting them occupy space in your mind without rent. When you no longer care who they text, what lies they tell next, or which mask they've decided to wear today. That day, I walked out of the coffee shop, turned my phone off, and took the long way home. I stood at the edge of a lake for a while, still, wide, undisturbed, and thought about the version of myself that lived 15 years behind a curtain. A man who thought loyalty could fix dishonesty. A man who didn't know that trust isn't a virtue when it's blind. And those lines came back to me again. The ones I'd scribbled in a notebook the night after I followed her the first time, tear through every lie they clung to, make them gasp on the truth they've tried to bury. 15 years of silence brought me here, but now that I'm standing at the edge, I'm not sure if victory feels like freedom or regret. Real truth cuts deeper when mercy walks beside it. I didn't know which I'd chosen, freedom or regret. Maybe both. But I knew I'd survived. And from here on out, I wouldn't live quietly anymore.